So the question is, why is that not a good question for an intelligence test? Yes.
The question assumes that the person who's looking at the picture knows what the umbrella is for.
Okay.
Whereas some people who look at the picture may not even understand, okay, what that person's holding is an umbrella, you're supposed to open it, it keeps off the rain.
Right.
Which
Okay.
also presupposes that you don't want to get wet.
Right.
In the cultures, that might not be an issue.
Right. Both of those are factors. So that getting wet is a situation to avoid. Yes.
It also supposes that the person that's using it doesn't actually need it for a cane. I've seen him used as a walking stick.
Okay. So he may not be able to put it over his head because he has to lean on it. All right.
It's a pole hole.
Or else you'll fall into the mud puddle and get very wet.
So the illustration is actually, the question of the umbrella is actually has location to it. I mean, it would not be valid everywhere, and it would not be a timeless thing either, because there have been times when there were not umbrellas, and in fact, the umbrella was first invented in the Far East as a shade. Nobility, high-class people, it wasn't, and it was, below-class people weren't even supposed to have it. High-class people would carry it as a shade from the sun. It wasn't originally a thing to shelter you from the rain. So, you go back to another time, or you go to another place, the umbrella illustration would not be valid at all for a lot of people. Besides, again, the fact that some people wouldn't mind getting wet. Some people would be glad to get wet. So, it's been probably a long time since that question was on a test, but IQ is very difficult to measure with things like that anyway. Okay, on the list, and this really, each of these is like a spectrum, okay? So especially like when there are two items, they're two extremes. So like number one, ascription versus achievement. A culture may be a little more to one direction or a little more to the other. It doesn't mean they're going to be totally one or the other. Now those are opposites, and what they refer to is the way a person gets status. Okay, how is a person viewed as being important in a culture? There are some cultures that would consider a person important because of what he has achieved. Okay, so maybe he gets an education, or he invents something, or he writes a book, or he accomplishes something where he makes a lot of money, or he's the head of some organization. He becomes an important person by what he has achieved. Okay, so that's achievement based. Ascription is the opposite. It means a person has a status because of conditions that he was born into, or conditions that he inherited that had nothing to do with achievement. So, like a crown prince, for example, he inherits the crown, he inherits the throne just because he was born at the right time and to the right people. So that's a scripted status. Now, of course, there aren't a lot of kings, a lot of princes, but there are some cultures that status is based on that. It's based by being born in the right class. People do not move easily from one class to another. It might even be impossible. So take a couple countries that would be on the extremes there. America would be very much achievement based. Okay? Person can be born poor, low class, whatever, and become wealthy, become a senator, whatever. It is possible in America. You are not bound by class. Okay? You can achieve. Now, that doesn't mean opportunities are always distributed equally, but it's still land of opportunity. India, especially, it's changed a lot in modern times, but especially under the caste system, you were born into a class, a caste, C-A-S-T-E. It was a social class, and they had a lot of castes. Okay, we're not just talking about low, middle, and high. We're talking like 100 castes. Okay, and so like leather workers were a caste, farmers were a caste. There's these different castes, and each one was exclusive. You were supposed to marry somebody in your own caste, and some castes were not allowed to associate too closely with others. In fact, the term outcast, has been used for that, because a person who is at the lowest level is a person who's not even in a caste. He's an outcast. He's below all the castes. And he's in what they would call the untouchable class. And so those are very rigid lines, and you did not move from one caste to another. If you did, or if you tried, or if you married somebody that was outside of your caste, you ran the risk of ending up being without caste. You'd be kicked out completely and dropped to the lowest status. So that would be an example of an scripted status. And then, those are extremes. And then all the way in between there's all these different levels, and there is status. And that wouldn't be to say that in America there would be no ascription done. I mean, there are people who are born into high-class families, maybe celebrities' families, or high-level politicians or whatever, and those people are automatically of high status because they were born into those families. Or a person who is born into a wealthy home, they have a measure of status that comes from that. So there is status that's attributed to somebody that they did not earn. But still, this would be one of the countries where it's the most achievement-based, perhaps of any place. Any questions on that? You understand the difference there? And so, again, we're talking a spectrum. So if we were to design this, something like this, where we would put achievement on this side and ascription on this side, we wouldn't say that there would be very many countries who would be all the way to one end or the other, but they're going to be more one side than the other. And the signs of these statuses, they have their symbols. So there's a story about a doctor in Haiti who, he's on his lunch break, and somebody comes in and says, "You have a patient waiting on you." And the doctor said, "Does he have shoes?" Okay. Why is he asking that question?
No caste.
Was he important enough to actually go out to see?
Right. It's a status determination. If he has shoes, he's upper class, and the doctor should get up and give up his lunch break and go take care of him. He's more likely to get paid, and even if he, whatever the pay, he's also, it may be somebody he would not want to offend. All right, if the person doesn't have shoes, then he walked in from a rural area, he probably has very little to pay, if anything, and he can wait. So that's the difference. So little questions like that, do they have shoes, that relates to different status symbols. That would obviously be achievement status, because a person could improve with right opportunities. He can improve his status with symbols like that.